Here on Colour of Country Life Flow FM, we're speaking with the Group Wholegoods Manager for Ramsey Bros, Tim Glover. How are you, Tim?
Oh, I'm fantastic, mate. How are you going?
Good to be with you as well. We caught up at a recent Growing SA conference and enjoyed listening to Mark Bickley, but we focus on what's happening in agriculture today, and especially when it comes to machinery. We talk about a lot of input costs, but is it arguably one of the biggest farmers' input costs is machinery?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, I don't like getting drawn into that argument, but, I guess we consider machinery to be part of that input cost, really. It's farmers can't do what they do without the machinery. And unfortunately, it's the world we live in at the moment, with the global pressures and that sort of thing. Certainly we've seen some price rises across the market. But, I think the most important part of it is making sure that you're working with a good dealer and have a good changeover or machinery management plan in place.
Absolutely, because what we've been seeing and hearing anecdotally is there's just such long delays now when it comes to getting machinery compared to, I guess, before 2020, understandably so, given the impacts of the pandemic.
100%. I think, one thing, and I don't know, I don't like using the word pandemic. I think we're all a little bit over it, but what it has done is it's obviously flipped the traditional supply chain and lead times and that sort of thing on its head, and machinery is no exception. So, we're seeing lead times now blowing out, as we progress, potentially out to 2 years. So, my advice to the listeners is, work with a dealer that actually understands that, I use with our team all the time that we're a proactive dealer and not a reactive dealer, and we try to take that approach with our customers. So, the more proactive you can be, the more planning you put in place, involve us in the discussion early. Some of your listeners might have heard some of our radio advertising. Our experience is your advantage. We've been doing it a long time. Does it make us the best at what we do? I'm not going to make a ridiculous claim like that, but we are good at what we do. So involving us in the conversation early, and we'll paint a pretty clear picture. The biggest frustration we're finding at the moment is that the information coming back to us, is sporadic at best. Never before have we seen a global demand like it is. Every market of the globe is wanting machinery, and that's across the board. Doesn't matter what colour it is, whether it's broadacre machinery, horticultural machinery, there is just this global demand. Construction's the same. So involve us in the conversation early, so we can give you the best advice and help you plan through that, those delays in some cases where there are. The other side of that coin is, we hope that we've been on the ball and we've ordered plenty of machines early in the piece when things change. So we've got availability of some particular makes and models coming through at the moment. So don't just write us off and go, no, I'm not going to get a machine. Just as I said, involve us in the conversation.
Now, you mentioned the experience you've got at Ramsey Bros there. What's been the biggest change, I guess, since before 2020, but even during this last sort of 5 or 6 years in terms of what's been the biggest change in the industry you've seen when it comes to getting machinery?
Oh, look, I think it's one of those things that will continue to drive what we do, and it's across the board. I know I've said that before, but technology continues to be the predominant thing where we see the changes. So, there's a lot of talk, and there has been for a period of time, about autonomy and that sort of thing. And at a point, we're going to get to that stage. It's becoming commercially available. But probably the biggest change that I've seen is automation in things like combine harvesters and that sort of stuff. Where it really can, improve and increase your efficiencies and that sort of stuff. We're all getting time poor. It's hard to get labour. So, there's got to be drives in efficiency and productivity. So, I think probably the biggest change that I've seen, other than the guidance and things like that, is got to be the automation in combine harvesters.
And is that something that sort of becomes part of that conversation you have proactively with farmers, is looking at where their labour costs are at and where the spend might be, beneficial in the long run in getting some automation?
Ricky, for us, and certainly one of my key drivers is that, and I actually, funnily enough, talked about this at the GPSA or Growing SA conference last year, or 2 years ago, sorry, is that I think the place of your machinery dealer now is got to have evolved to more than just supplying machinery. I talk about involving us in the conversation. The conversation now has to be around how can we make the machinery that you've got on your farm, and as I said, you can't do without it. How can we help you to make sure that you're actually optimising that machinery, that plant? It's a huge cost. We talked about that at the start of the interview. Costs continue to rise. I can't change that. I wish I could. But, involving us in the conversation to talk about, let's sit down and work out what are you doing. what jobs have you got? What machinery have you got? Can that machine do 2 jobs? And it's really understanding the bigger picture. And as I said, it's really about gaining the maximum that you can out of the plant that you've got, changing it over at the right times. But, inherently important to understand that, you can multitask now. The days of old where you might have had a machine that, traditionally your seeding tractor, you use it for 4 to 6 weeks of the year and then it sits in the shed. We're seeing probably over the last 5 to 6 years, we've seen guys really switch on. They've upgraded the chaser bins, bigger chaser bins. That's the other thing. Everything's getting bigger. That tractor's now used during harvest as well. So it's a small example, but, it's really understanding what jobs you've got, what machinery you've got, and how we can, almost get to the point where we multitask those machines to do more than what they have been doing traditionally.
Sounds good. I've got this picture of a farmer with his feet up on his desk, sipping his coffee back at the, at the home. It's not here yet. There'll be other problems, no doubt, that are rising from time to time.
Oh, look, we said autonomy will be something that it's coming at us pretty fast. It's another great advance, but heck, we're a long way going. We're a long way to go till we get to the point where our customers are sitting back with their feet up on the desk. Hey, they just don't have time at the moment, but that'll be the next big thing in machinery. But, between now and then, and who knows when that's going to be a full-scale, option. But, right now we've got to do what we can and help people do the best they can with the machinery they've got.
Excellent, Tim. Look, just one last one. We're looking at a bit of stirring might be going on in federal politics with a federal budget in October about tax deductibility for purchases and whether that might continue into the 23-24 financial year. How big a role does tax deductibility play in people making a purchasing decision?
Oh, look, there's absolutely no question that it's, again, flip the buying cycle on its head. The write-ups that have been on the table since our little friend started and turned everything around have no doubt, made dramatic changes to how people look at machinery and that sort of stuff. And, mate, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a machinery dealer. But, as good as it's been, and it certainly has been good, it's brought a lot of business forward, which is something that obviously, the industry needs to be a little bit aware of. But I think the other side to it is I still think there's a fair bit of rocky ground to go through if they do turn it off, come June 30. There's other disadvantages on the other end when someone looks to change over a machine. So I'm sure that the Halls of Canberra, certainly the people that have got interest in the ag space, and it goes wider than obviously the ag space, they have to be sitting back looking at their numbers now and proposing that, the turn-off that is mooted, maybe it's changed, massaged. I think there's a little bit more understanding that needs to happen in the Halls of Canberra, and we'll see where it takes us. But look, it's been good, and I think the great thing is that the people that have taken advantage of it wisely have done so wisely under good advice from their accountants. But interesting days ahead. There's plenty of talk about it on our social media sites and that sort of thing I noticed the other day. So I guess we sit back and watch this space.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've talked about across the interview, timing is absolutely everything, Tim. If the people want more information or get in touch, is it ramseybros.com.au to get in touch online?
Yeah, absolutely. Jump on our website and quite welcome to call any of our branches. But at the same time, my details are on there, so if anyone wants to give me a call and have a chat, mate, absolutely, more than happy to do so.
Tim Glover from Ramsey Brothers, thanks so much for joining us today here on Flow.
Fantastic, mate. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope we all have a good harvest.